What if the very thing that has made your life feel the hardest is actually the clearest proof that you were chosen for something most people will never be trusted with? Sit with that question for a moment. Do not rush past it. Because everything you are about to hear in the next few minutes was written for the version of you that has been carrying something heavy for a very long time. Something you could not explain to anyone around you. Something that made you feel like you were living in a different dimension from the people closest to you. From the outside, your life looks manageable. It looks like you are holding it together. People see someone who shows up, who keeps going, who smiles when they need to and handles what needs to be handled. They see someone functional, someone steady, maybe even someone they quietly admire without ever saying it out loud. That is what the outside looks like. But from the inside, you know something different. From the inside, there is a weight that sits just beneath the surface of every ordinary moment. There is a version of you that lies awake at night not because anything is technically wrong, but because something deep inside you knows that you were built for more than what is currently around you. There is a hunger that does not go away no matter how much you achieve or how many problems you solve. And there is a strange, persistent feeling that the people in your life see something in you that they have never quite named out loud. Something that makes them pull back. Something that makes them go quiet in ways you cannot explain. Something that makes them talk about you in rooms you are not in. You are not imagining that. You never were. Beloved and chosen one, what you are sensing is real. The discomfort you feel in spaces that should feel comfortable is not a flaw in your personality. The way certain people go cold around you for no clear reason is not a coincidence. The restlessness that lives inside your chest even on your best days is not ingratitude. These are signs. And if you have been carrying even 2 or 3 of what I am about to describe, then this message did not find you by accident. The first sign is that your dreams have been getting louder, not just at night, but in the middle of the day, in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of a task that should have your full attention. Something inside you keeps breaking through with images and impressions and a sense of direction that your current circumstances have not yet caught up with. You dream of versions of yourself that feel more real than the one standing in the mirror right now. The second sign is that you feel a deep, specific frustration that is almost impossible to explain to the people around you. It is not depression, though it can look like it from the outside. It is not ingratitude, though people have accused you of that. It is a knowing frustration, the kind that only comes when something inside you is aware of its potential and is not yet living inside it fully. The third sign is that you have always felt slightly out of place, even in rooms where you were welcomed, even in relationships where you were loved. There has always been a part of you that felt like you were visiting rather than belonging, like you were passing through something rather than settling into it. And you used to think that was a problem. You do not need to think that anymore. The fourth sign is that people react to you in ways that seem disproportionate to what you actually did. Someone is cold to you and you cannot figure out why. Someone leaves without explanation. Someone who once seemed close becomes distant the moment something good starts happening in your life. Someone undermines you quietly, consistently, in ways that are hard to point to directly. And you have spent so much energy trying to figure out what you did wrong, when the truth is that what they are reacting to is not something you did, it is something you carry. The fifth sign is that you have a sensitivity that runs deeper than most people around you. You feel things before they happen. You pick up on things in rooms that other people miss entirely. You know when something is wrong, even when everything looks fine. You have been told your whole life that you are too sensitive, too intense, too much. But what they were really telling you is that you were different. And different, in the economy of heaven, is not a liability. It is a qualification. God's chosen one. You have spent years trying to shrink yourself into spaces that were never designed to hold you. You have tried to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. You have apologized for a gift that was never given to them in the first place. And somewhere along the way, you started to wonder if the waiting, the resistance, the loneliness of standing out in a crowd was a sign that something was wrong with you. It was never wrong with you. It was always working through you. Heaven did not pause to send you this message at random. The fact that you are still here, still listening, still holding on after everything that has tried to wear you down, that is not stubbornness. That is assignment. That is the signature of someone who was built to carry something beyond the ordinary. You are an earth angel. You are part of a divine plan that was written before you took your first breath. And the people who have talked about you behind closed doors, the ones who have whispered about the way you stand out, the ones who feel something in your presence that they cannot name and cannot control, they already know something about you that you are only now beginning to fully understand. The waiting is not wasted. The isolations was not abandonment. The resistance you have faced has been building something in you that cannot be manufactured any other way. And today, right now, in this moment, something shifts. You were not almost ready. You were ready the moment you showed up here. There is something that happens in the season you are in right now that nobody talks about, honestly. People will talk about faith. They will talk about patience. They will quote words about waiting and trusting and holding on. But almost nobody will sit down beside you and say out loud what it actually feels like from the inside of that waiting. Almost nobody will name the specific texture of what you are carrying. And so you have been walking around with a feeling that has no language, a weight that has no label, a pain that has never been given its proper name. That changes right now. Because what you are feeling is not a sign of weakness. What you are feeling is not evidence that your faith is broken or that you somehow missed a turn somewhere along the road. What you are feeling is the very specific interior landscape of someone who has been chosen, set apart, and placed in a season of preparation so deep and so thorough that even the people closest to you cannot see what is happening beneath the surface. They only see the outside. They only see the stillness. They do not see the work. Let me name 4 things that you have been feeling, and I want you to notice, as I name them, how your body responds. Because sometimes the greatest relief is not a solution. Sometimes the greatest relief is simply hearing someone say the thing that has been living inside you without a name. The first thing you have been feeling is a sudden and unexpected wave of sadness about the past. Not a grief that is connected to one specific loss, but a wider sadness, a kind of mourning that washes over you sometimes in the most ordinary moments. You could be washing dishes, or driving somewhere familiar, or sitting in a room full of people who love you, and out of nowhere, a wave comes, a sadness about time, about years, about the version of life you imagined and the version you are currently living. About people who were supposed to stay and did not. About doors that opened and then closed before you could walk through them fully. And you have tried to push that wave back because you do not want to seem ungrateful. You have told yourself to be thankful for what you have. But the wave keeps coming back, and I want you to know that this wave is not irrational. It is not self-pity. It is your soul doing something very specific. It is grieving what was lost, so that it can receive what is coming. You cannot hold both the old grief and the new beginning with the same two hands. The sadness is making space. The second thing you have been feeling is that familiar places and familiar people have started to feel heavy and strange. Places where you used to feel comfortable now feel slightly off, like the furniture has been moved an inch in every direction, and nothing is quite where you remember it. Conversations that used to feel easy now feel like work. Friendships that used to feel nourishing now feel like they are pulling something out of you rather than pouring something in. You have tried to ignore this. You have told yourself that something must be wrong with you, that you are being ungrateful or antisocial or difficult. But what is actually happening is that you are outgrowing rooms that were never meant to be permanent. And when a person grows, the spaces that once fit them begin to feel tight. The tightness is not a problem. The tightness is a signal. The third thing you have been feeling is a recurring dream, or a recurring impression, or a recurring image that keeps coming back to you in different forms. It is the image of a door. Sometimes the door is specific. Sometimes it is just a sense of something unopened, something just beyond where you currently stand, something that feels like it is yours, but that you have not been able to access yet. You have dreamed of thresholds. You have woken up with the feeling of almost there, almost ready, almost through. And then the day begins and the feeling fades and you go back to managing what is in front of you. But the dream keeps returning because it is not just a dream, it is a preview. Heaven does not send the same image repeatedly unless it is trying to prepare you for something you are about to see with open eyes. The fourth thing you have been feeling is that the same message keeps appearing in different places. A sentence in a book falls open to a page you were not looking for, and it says exactly what you needed to hear. A conversation you were not part of produces a phrase that lands directly in the center of something you have been privately wrestling with. A song comes on at the exact moment you were thinking the exact thought that the song addresses. A video finds you, a message finds you, the same theme, arriving through different mouths, different channels, different moments. You have noticed this, you have felt the strangeness of it, and some part of you has wondered whether you were looking for patterns that were not there. But you were not inventing it. When heaven is trying to reach someone, it does not knock once. It knocks through everything until the person opens the door. And alongside these four signs, you have been carrying something else. Something that sits underneath all of it, like a low hum that never quite stops. You have been carrying the specific loneliness of someone who is misunderstood. Not disliked necessarily, though sometimes that too. But misunderstood in the deepest way, the way where people think they know you, because they know the version of you that shows up in public. The functional version, the capable version, the one that handles things. But they do not know the version that lies awake at 3 in the morning. They do not know the version that prays in a whisper, because even the full volume of prayer feels too exposed. They do not know the version that has cried in a car before walking into a building so that no one inside would know. That version has been very, very alone. And there is the insomnia. The specific insomnia of a chosen one is not the same as ordinary sleeplessness. It is not simply a restless mind or too much caffeine or a body that cannot settle. The insomnia of someone in your position is the insomnia of a person whose spirit is more awake than their circumstances have caught up with. You lie down and everything goes quiet around you, and suddenly your mind is not wandering, it is arriving. Arriving at questions, at images, at a sense of something, pressing in from just beyond the threshold of what you can currently see. Heaven tends to get louder in the quiet, and the quiet of midnight has been one of the primary places where something in you has been receiving things that your daytime life has not yet had room to hold. You have also felt wronged, and I want to say that plainly because it rarely gets said plainly in content like this. You have felt the specific sting of being overlooked when you deserve to be seen. You have watched people with less preparation, less character, less genuine gift move ahead of you in ways that made no human sense. You have been loyal and it was not rewarded. You have been honest and it cost you something. You have worked and waited and shown up and done the right and looked up one day to find that the people who cut corners and played games seemed to be further along than you. And that has not just been painful, it has been confusing. Because if there is a God, and if you are chosen, and if the promises are real, then why does it look like this from the inside? Here is what I want you to understand. And I want you to hear this not as a quick reframe, but as something that goes all the way down to the root of your situation. There is a difference between being overlooked and being positioned. These two things can look identical from the outside. They can feel almost identical from the inside, but they are entirely different realities. Being overlooked means you were seen and dismissed, that someone assessed your value and decided you were not worth their attention or investment or recognition. Being positioned means you were never meant for that room in the first place, that the delay, the setback, the silence, being passed over was not rejection but redirection, not dismissal but divine placement. The person who is overlooked loses something. The person who is positioned is being protected from something they cannot yet see. You have not been overlooked. You have been positioned. And the people who talked about you in rooms you were not in, the people who felt threatened by the way you stand out, the people who went cold or pulled back or undermined you quietly, they sensed your positioning before you fully understood it yourself. What they reacted to was not your failure. It was your frequency. It was the unmistakable quality of squans, of someone who has been set apart, and that quality made them uncomfortable in a way they could not name but could not ignore. The waiting you have been in is not a punishment. It is not evidence that you were forgotten or that the promises made over your life were empty. The waiting is a preparation so specific, so thorough, so custom-built for the exact assignment ahead of you that it could not have been shortened without leaving you underprepared for what you are about to walk into. You were not being punished. You were being protected. You were not being ignored. You were being assembled. And now, right now, in this exact season, something is beginning to shift beneath the surface in ways you may not be able to feel yet, but that are already in motion. If everything I have named in this part of the message has found you, if you recognize the wave of sadness, the heaviness of familiar places, the recurring dream of an unopened door, the same message arriving through different channels, if you have felt the loneliness and the insomnia and the sting of being passed over, then I want you to do one simple thing right now. Type the word "ready" in the comments. Not because it is a magic word, but because naming where you are is the first act of stepping into where you are going. Type "ready" and let it be a declaration that you are no longer waiting to be seen by the people around you, because you have just been seen by something much larger. And if this message has met you in a real place today, if it has named something that has been living inside you without a name, I want to gently invite you to consider supporting this work with a donation. Not because this message has a price. It does not. But because there are thousands of chosen ones just like you who need to hear exactly what you just heard, and this message can only reach them if it has the resources to travel. Whatever you are able to give, whether it is the amount of a coffee or something more. It becomes part of the chain that carries this word to the next person who is lying awake at 3 in the morning, if anyone can name what they are feeling. Your generosity is not just a gift to this channel. It is a gift to the next chosen one who has not found their way here yet. The link is available below this video, and every contribution, no matter the size, is received with genuine gratitude and honored as the act of faith that it is. You are not alone in this room. You never were. You have just done something that more people than you realize never do. You stayed. You did not click away when the emotion got too close. You did not minimize the window when the words started landing in a place that felt too personal. You stayed, and that matters more than you know, because the ones who stay are always the ones who are ready to receive, even when they are not yet sure what it is they are receiving. And now I want to give you something practical. Because faith without a place to put your hands is just an idea floating in the air, and you have been carrying ideas for long enough. What you need right now is not another beautiful concept to think about. What you need is something you can actually do today. Something that costs you nothing except a few minutes of your attention. Something that works regardless of where you are sitting right now. Whether that is a quiet room at home, or a parking lot, or a break room at work, or the corner of a coffee shop where you hoped no one would notice you watching this. What I am about to walk you through is not a religious exercise. It is not something that requires a particular background or a particular level of spiritual maturity. It is a practice, and like all practices, it becomes more powerful the more consistently you return to it. But even the first time you do it, something shifts. Not dramatically, not in a way that will necessarily produce a feeling you can point to immediately, but something moves. Something that has been locked begins to loosen, and over time, that loosening becomes an opening, and that opening becomes the very door that has been appearing in your recurring dreams. This practice has 3 steps. They are simple, they are specific, and they are designed to work together in a sequence, so I want you to follow them in order rather than jumping ahead. Before you begin, I want you to do one thing with your body. Sit up slightly, not rigid, not uncomfortable, but upright enough that your chest is open. Place both of your feet flat on the floor if you can. Take one breath in through your nose, slow and deliberate, and let it out through your mouth without rushing it. That breath is not ceremonial, it is functional. It is shifting your nervous system from the state of managing and reacting, which is where most of us live most of the time, into the state of receiving, which is where this practice needs you to be. You cannot receive with a clenched fist. You cannot receive when every part of you is braced for the next difficulty. That one breath is the beginning of unclenching good. Now the 3 steps. Step 1 is this. I want you to remember something you are grateful for that did not happen. Not something good that came to you. Not a blessing you received or a prayer that was answered in the way you hoped. I want you to think of something that you are genuinely grateful did not happen. A door that closed that you cried over at the time, but that you can now see, even slightly, might have been a protection. A relationship that ended, that felt like destruction, but that, looking back, might have kept you from something smaller than what you were built for. A plan that fell apart that you have not yet fully understood, but that some quiet part of you suspects was not the right plan for who you are becoming. This is harder than it sounds, because most of us are trained to count our blessings in terms of what arrived, what stayed, what was given. But the chosen one's gratitude runs deeper than that. It includes gratitude for the removals, gratitude for the closed doors, Gratitude for the no that felt like a wound at the time but was actually a redirection. I want you to find one of those. Just one. It does not have to be something you have fully made peace with. It does not have to be something you completely understand. It just has to be something that, when you hold it up to the light honestly, you can say with even 10% of your heart, I am glad that did not happen the way I wanted it to. Or, I am beginning to see why that had to fall apart. Or even simply, I trust that the closing of that door was not random, even though I still do not fully understand it. Hold that thing in your mind. Do not analyze it. Do not try to write a sermon about it. Just hold it, the way you would hold something fragile and valuable, with open hands rather than a tight grip. That is step one, and the reason it matters is not sentimental. The reason it matters is neurological and spiritual at the same time. When you practice gratitude for what was withheld, you are training the deeper parts of your mind to trust the process even when the process does not look like progress. You are building what researchers call cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold more than one interpretation of a situation at the same time. And you are building what ancient wisdom calls faith, not the faith that demands a specific outcome, but the faith that trusts the nature of the one directing the outcomes. These are not separate things. They are the same thing described in two different languages. Step 2 is a statement, and I want you to say it either out loud or clearly in your mind, whichever feels right for where you are right now. The statement is this: I am not behind. I am not broken. I am not forgotten. I am in the exact place I need to be for what is about to come through me. Say it again. And this time, I want you to notice the part of you that pushes back. Notice the internal voice that says, but you do not know my situation. Notice the part that lists all the evidence to the contrary. The years that have passed, the things that have not come yet, the gap between where you are and where you feel you should be by now. Do not argue with that voice. Do not try to silence it with willpower. Just notice it, and then say the statement one more time anyway. Because the practice is not about achieving a feeling of certainty before you speak. The practice is about speaking into the uncertainty. It is about planting a declaration in soil that does not yet look fertile, trusting that the seed knows what the ground does not yet show. This statement is directly connected to something that researchers in neuroscience have been documenting for decades, and that we will come back to in a moment, when I share something specific about the science behind what you have just done. For now, understand that when you speak a truthful declaration into the space of your own uncertainty, you are not performing spiritual theater. You are doing something measurable. You are creating new neural pathways. You are literally rewiring the architecture of how your brain processes your own story. The words you speak about yourself, especially in moments of stillness and sincerity, carry a biological weight that goes far beyond motivation or inspiration. They are instructions, and your brain, remarkably and without your permission, begins to follow them. Step 3 is the one that ties everything together, and it is the simplest of the three, which means it is also the one that the mind will most want to resist, because the mind tends to distrust simplicity. Step 3 is 7 minutes of silence, not meditation in the sense of achieving a blank mind, because that is not actually what meditation is, though it is what most people fear when they hear the word. Not prayer in the sense of filling the silence with words and requests and intercessions. Simply 7 minutes of being still, with your eyes closed if that is comfortable, with your breath slow and your body open, and your attention directed inward rather than outward. 7 minutes. That is all. And I want to tell you why 7 minutes specifically, because this is not an arbitrary number. There is a reason that this exact duration appears repeatedly in the research of people who have spent their careers studying the brain. There is a reason that when I bring you into the science portion of this message, you will hear this number again from a completely different direction. 7 minutes is approximately the amount of time it takes for the brain to begin transitioning from its default operating state, which is characterized by a specific set of brainwave frequencies associated with stress, vigilance, problem-solving, and reactivity, into a deeper state, characterized by a completely different set of frequencies associated with creativity, intuition, emotional processing, and what researchers describe as integrative thinking. The shift does not happen at the 3-minute mark. It does not happen at the 5-minute mark. Research suggests that the threshold, the point at which the brain begins to make a genuine transition, rather than simply resting on the surface of stillness, lands somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 minutes for most adults. 7 minutes sits right at the center of that window. This matters because you are not just resting when you do this. You are actively creating the neurological conditions under which your deepest capacities become accessible. The things that are in you, the creativity, the discernment, the ability to sense direction, the qualities that other people react to when they feel threatened by your presence. Those things do not disappear when life gets loud and busy and heavy. They go quiet. They go underneath the noise. And 7 minutes of genuine stillness is often enough to bring them back to the surface. So, in practical terms, here is what step 3 looks like. After you have completed steps 1 and 2, you set a gentle timer for 7 minutes. You do not use a jarring alarm. You use something soft, something that will call you back without startling you. You close your eyes. You breathe. You do not try to think about anything in particular. You do not try to stop thinking either. You simply allow. You allow the breath to move. You allow the thoughts to come and pass the way clouds move across a sky. You do not chase them, and you do not fight them. You simply remain present in the space behind them. The quiet space that is always there, the space that all the noise of daily life tends to cover over. And in that space, something happens. It does not always happen in a way you can immediately describe. Sometimes it is a feeling of release. Sometimes it is a sudden clarity about something that had felt murky and confusing. Sometimes it is simply peace, a peace that feels slightly disproportionate to the circumstances, a peace that you did not earn or manufacture through logic, a peace that arrived the way the light arrives, after a long night not announced, simply present. Sometimes nothing feels like it happens at all. And on those days, I want you to trust that the practice still worked. Because the brain does not only shift in ways you can feel in the moment. Often the most significant neurological shifts are the ones that show up hours later, or the next morning, or in a conversation 3 days from now, where you find yourself responding with a clarity and a groundedness that surprises even you. This 3-step practice is yours now. You can do it in the morning before the demands of the day begin to crowd in. You can do it at night when everything has gone quiet and the space finally opens up. You can do it in a parked car. You can do it in a bathroom at work. You can do it in whatever 7 minutes your day gives you, because the chosen one does not wait for perfect conditions to do the work of becoming. The chosen one uses what is available. Remember this. Gratitude for what did not happen. A declaration spoken into uncertainty. And 7 minutes of stillness that your brain will use in ways your conscious mind cannot fully supervise or predict. These 3 steps are not preparation for something else. They are the thing itself. They are the practice of a person who has decided to stop waiting for their life to change and to begin participating in the change from the inside out. And in a moment, I am going to show you something that takes this practice even further. I am going to introduce you to a discovery that a neuroscientist spent then 30 years of his career uncovering. A discovery that connects everything you have just done to a specific, measurable frequency that chosen ones carry. A frequency that has been documented in research settings. A frequency that can be gently awakened and strengthened in exactly the same 7-minute window you have just been introduced to. What you have started in these 3 steps is real. And what comes next will show you just how real it is. Stay with me. Stay right where you are, because what I am about to share with you is the part of this message that will make everything else make sense in a way it has not made sense before. Not just spiritually, not just emotionally, but scientifically, measurably, in a way that has been documented in research settings by people who spent their entire careers trying to understand why certain human beings seem to operate at a fundamentally different level than the people around them. You have always known. You were different. You felt it before you had language for it. You felt it in the way rooms shifted when you walked into them. You felt it in the way certain people were drawn to you, and other people were unsettled by you, sometimes at the same time, sometimes the same person on different days. You felt it in the depth of your perception, the way you picked up on things others missed, the way you sensed things before they were visible, the way your inner world has always been richer and more complex and more insistent than the outer world seemed to have room for. What I want you to understand right now is that what you have been experiencing your entire life as a spiritual reality, as a sense of calling, as a sense of being set apart, has a corresponding physical reality inside your own brain. It has a frequency, and that frequency has a name. Researchers who study human cognition and neural performance have identified a specific category of brainwave activity that appears consistently in people who demonstrate extraordinary levels of creativity, insight, intuition, and what can only be described as accelerated knowing. People who seem to arrive at solutions and understandings that others reach much more slowly, or not at all. People who operate in a state of heightened awareness that gives them access to dimensions of a problem or a situation that the average person simply cannot perceive. This brainwave state is called gamma, and it operates at a frequency between 30 and 100 hertz, which means it is the fastest, highest amplitude brainwave pattern the human brain produces. Gamma is the frequency of the eureka moment. It is the frequency of deep flow states. Those experiences where time seems to collapse and everything you do feels effortless and precise. It is the frequency that lights up in the brains of experienced meditators, of elite performers in high-stakes situations, of people in moments of profound spiritual experience. And here is what is remarkable. When researchers mapped the brainwave activity of children, particularly young children between the ages of 2 and 6, they found gamma activity occurring naturally, spontaneously, and abundantly. Children live in gamma the way adults live in beta, the stress response frequency, almost constantly. And then something happens. The world gets louder, the demands increase, the pressures accumulate, the conditioning begins, and gradually the gamma frequency that came so naturally becomes rarer and harder to access. The brain defaults to beta, to the vigilant, reactive, problem-solving mode that modern life seems to require at every waking moment. And the deeper capacities, the creative intelligence, the intuitive knowing, the spiritual perception, begin to operate only in brief windows, in moments of grace that seem random, because the person does not yet know how to return to the frequency that makes them possible. This is where Dr. James Rivers enters the picture. Dr. Day, neuroscientist, whose career has been shaped by one central question, a question that most of his colleagues considered too ambitious or too strange to pursue seriously. That question was this: if certain human beings seem to carry a natural access to higher states of cognitive and creative function, is there a way to understand the neurological basis of that access, and more importantly, is there a way to make that access available to anyone? Dr. Rivers trained at MIT, one of the most rigorous scientific institutions in the world, and his research has been connected to work done in collaboration with NASA, where understanding human cognitive performance under pressure is not an academic exercise but a matter of survival. Over more than 30 years of research, Dr. Rivers and his team studied thousands of subjects, mapping their brainwave activity, correlating it with their reported experiences of insight, creativity, and spiritual perception, and looking for the patterns that distinguished people who accessed their full cognitive and intuitive potential from those who did not. What they found confirmed something that ancient wisdom traditions had been pointing to for thousands of years, but now, with the precision of modern neuroscience behind it. The people who consistently accessed their highest levels of function, the ones who made the breakthroughs, solved the problems that others could not, sensed the directions that others missed, and seemed to operate with a quality of knowing that went beyond ordinary intelligence. These people shared a consistent neurological signature. They showed elevated theta wave activity, the dreamy, deeply receptive frequency between 4 and 8 Hz, combined with bursts of gamma activity at the higher end. And the relationship between these two frequencies, the way theta created the conditions for gamma to arise, was the key to everything. Theta is the frequency of deep receptivity. It is the state your brain enters in the moments just before sleep and just after waking, that twilight space where the boundary between the conscious and the unconscious becomes permeable, and ideas arrive fully formed from somewhere that feels deeper than ordinary thought. It is the frequency of the artist in the moment of genuine inspiration. It is the frequency of the person in prayer who suddenly knows something they were not told. It is the frequency, Dr. Rivers discovered, that creates the neurological conditions for gamma to ignite. And here is what this means for you specifically. The 7-minute practice I walked you through in the previous section of this message was not arbitrary. It was not simply a relaxation exercise. It was a specific neurological protocol designed to guide your brain toward the theta state that makes gamma access possible. 7 minutes, as Dr. Rivers and his team documented across thousands of sessions, is the approximate threshold at which the brain begins to make a genuine transition into theta. Not a surface-level relaxation, but a measurable shift in brainwave frequency that creates the conditions for the higher functions to become available. But here is where the discovery goes even further. Dr. Rivers and his team found that this transition could be significantly accelerated and deepened through the use of precisely calibrated audio frequencies. Specifically, through a combination of binaural beats and isochronic tones, two forms of auditory stimulation that work with the brain's natural frequency following response, a phenomenon called brainwave entrainment. Brainwave entrainment is not a new idea. The brain's tendency to synchronize with rhythmic external stimuli has been documented in scientific literature for decades. What Dr. Rivers contributed was the precision. By calculating the exact frequency combinations that would guide the brain most efficiently from its default beta state through the theta threshold, and into conditions where gamma activity could spontaneously arise. His team created an audio tool that accomplished in 7 minutes what would otherwise require years of dedicated meditation practice to achieve consistently. That tool is called the Genius Wave, and I want to tell you about someone who found it in a season that sounds remarkably like the one you are in right now. Her name was Sarah, and she had spent 4 years in a professional situation that she described as feeling like running on a treadmill that was slowly getting faster while the finish line kept moving further away. She was capable. She was hardworking. She was the person everyone called when something needed to be handled well. But she could not seem to break through into the levels she knew she was built for, and the gap between her potential and her current reality had started to feel like a permanent condition rather than a temporary one. She found the Genius Wave through a message much like this one, and she committed to 7 minutes every morning for 30 days. By the end of the 2nd week, she told Dr. Rivers's team something had shifted in the way she approached problems at work. Ideas that had previously felt out of reach began arriving with a clarity and a completeness that surprised her. By the end of the month, she had proposed a solution to a problem that her team had been struggling with for 2 years, and the proposal was not only accepted but implemented. She said the most remarkable thing was not the idea itself, but the feeling of accessing it, the feeling of reaching into a space inside herself that had always been there, but that she had not known how to enter. There is also the story of a man named David, a father of 3, who had spent the better part of a decade feeling like his best years were behind him. He described himself as someone who used to dream big and had gradually stopped. Not because the dreams died, but because the exhaustion of daily life had covered them over so completely that he had almost forgotten they were there. 7 minutes a day with the Genius Wave, he said, was the first time in years that he felt like himself again. Not a younger version, not a different version, the full version. The version that had always been underneath everything else, waiting for the noise to clear. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now, because I have heard it before and I want to address it directly. You are thinking that something this specific and this effective must come with a price that puts it out of reach. And I want to be honest with you, because you deserve honesty more than you deserve a sales pitch. I know that $39 is not nothing. For some of you listening right now, that is a real number that requires a real decision. I am not going to pretend otherwise, and I am not going to use pressure tactics to push you past a genuine financial boundary. What I will say is this: the Genius Wave was originally priced at $49, which reflects the more than 30 years of research and thousands of hours of development that went into creating it. For a limited time, through the single link in the pinned comment below this video, it is available for $39. It comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, which means you have 3 full months to experience it, to give it the 30-day commitment that the research supports, and to decide for yourself whether what happened for Sarah and David and more than 19,000 other people who have used it is something that is real and available for you. The 90-day guarantee is not a marketing phrase. It is a reflection of the confidence that Dr. Rivers and his team have in what they built. They are not asking you to take a leap of faith without a safety net. They are asking you to take a step, and they are telling you that if the step does not land where they believe it will, they will return every dollar without question. One more thing before I move forward, and this is important. There are versions of this product circulating online that are not the genuine tool developed by Dr. Rivers and his team. They use similar language and similar concepts, but they are not built on the same research, and they are not calibrated to the same specifications. The only way to ensure you are accessing the real genius wave is through the single link in the pinned comment below this video. Not through a search engine. Not through a third-party site. The pinned comment. That is the only source I can stand behind, and the only source that comes with the genuine 90-day guarantee. This discovery did not find you today by accident. The same frequency that Dr. Rivers spent 30 years documenting. The gamma frequency of the chosen one. The frequency that children carry naturally and that life slowly covers over in most adults is still inside you. It has always been inside you. It has been operating beneath the noise of everything you have been managing and enduring and pushing through. The genius wave does not give you something you do not already have. It simply clears the path back to what was always yours. And the price of that path today is $39.07 a day. The question is not whether you deserve it. You already know the answer to that. The question is whether you are ready to stop waiting for your highest self to arrive and to begin creating the neurological conditions that call it forward. I believe you are. I believe that is exactly why you are still here. There is something I need to say before we go any further, and I want you to hear it, not as a transition into the next idea, but as a moment where we stop moving forward and simply stand still for a while in the truth of what has actually happened to you. Because it would be very easy, in a message like this one, to move too quickly from the pain to the promise. It would be very easy to name the difficulty and then immediately reframe it into something beautiful and purposeful and redemptive. And sometimes that reframing is exactly what is needed. But sometimes, before the reframe, before the new perspective, before the promise, what is needed is simply for someone to sit down beside you in the middle of the wreckage and say, yes, this was hard. This cost you something real. And what was taken from you deserves to be named before it is redeemed. So that is what I want to do right now. Not to keep you in the pain longer than necessary, but to honor it fully before we move through it. Because the chosen ones who try to skip the grieving and go straight to the glory tend to carry the ungrieved weight with them into every new season, and it becomes the invisible thing that slows them down even when everything around them is finally moving. So let me ask you something honest. How many years have you been in this waiting season? How many years have passed while you held on, while you trusted, while you kept showing up and kept believing and kept doing the next right thing even when the next right thing produced no visible result? And in those years, what was taken from you? I want to name some of it, not all of it, because some of it is yours alone, and only you know the full weight of it. But some of it is shared. Some of it is the common cost of being chosen in a world that does not always recognize what it is looking at. The first thing that was taken was relationships. Not just the relationships that ended, though those matter deeply, and we will not minimize them, but the relationships that never had the chance to begin, because you were in a season that required so much of your energy just to survive that you had nothing left over to invest in building new connections. The friendships that might have become the kind of friendships people write about, the deep, sustaining, I know who you really are kind of friendship that never grew because the soil of your life during those years was too depleted to support that kind of growth. The romantic partnership that might have developed into something extraordinary, but that stalled or collapsed under the weight of what you were both carrying in a season that was never meant to be shared in that particular way. The mentors who might have found you if you had been in a different room, in a different season, with more capacity to be found. These are real losses. The relationships that did not happen are as real as the ones that did, and their absence has shaped you in ways that deserve to be. Acknowledge the second thing that was taken was momentum in your work and your purpose. There is a version of your career, your creative life, your professional trajectory, your mission in the world that would have looked different if the waiting season had been shorter. There are things you would have built by now. There are contributions you would have made. There are people you would have reached, and instead, you spent years in a holding pattern that felt, from the inside, like running as hard as you could while the ground moved backward beneath your feet. The effort was real. The intention was real. The capacity was real. But something kept the breakthrough just out of reach, and the years accumulated, and the gap between where you are and where you sensed you were supposed to be began to feel less like a temporary distance and more like a permanent condition. That is a real cost. It deserves to be named. The third thing that was taken was the freedom to dream out loud. At some point during the waiting, you learned to keep the big dreams quiet. Not because you stopped having them, but because you had been disappointed enough times that the act of speaking them out loud began to feel dangerous. Like if you said them, you would have to face the possibility that they would not come true. Like the gap between what you declared and what actually happened would be too painful to bear. And so the dreams went underground. They did not die, but they went silent. And the silence of a dream that has gone underground is a particular kind of loneliness, because you are carrying something enormous that you cannot share, and the weight of it is yours alone. And the fourth thing, the one that I suspect cuts the deepest of all, is the faith you had in yourself. Not your faith in God, not necessarily, though that has been tested too, but your faith in your own perception, your faith in your own knowing, your faith that what you sensed about yourself, the calling, the capacity, the sense that you were built for something significant, was real, and not a story you had invented to make the waiting bearable. Because after enough years of waiting, after enough disappointments, after enough moments of almost and not quite and not yet, it becomes genuinely difficult to maintain confidence in the original vision. The voice that says you were wrong about yourself gets louder every year the breakthrough does not come. And fighting that voice while also managing everything else life has demanded of you has been one of the most exhausting battles of your entire existence. I see that battle. And I want you to know that the fact that you are still here, still listening, still holding even a thread of the original knowing, is not a small thing. It is an extraordinary thing. It is the evidence of a strength that most people simply do not have. Now I want to bring you to someone from ancient scripture, not to rush you into a lesson, but because sometimes the most healing thing is to discover that someone walked this road before you and survived it in a way that history remembered. I want to bring you to Joseph, not the part of the story where everything comes together, not the moment of vindication, not the throne, not the reunion with his brothers, not the revelation of the divine plan that made sense of everything. I want to bring you to the middle of the story, because the middle of Joseph's story is where most of us actually live, and the middle almost never gets the attention it deserves. Joseph was a young man who carried something in him that the people closest to him could feel but could not name. His brothers sensed it. It made them uncomfortable. It made them angry in the way that people get angry when they are in the presence of something they cannot control and cannot explain. And so they did what threatened people often do to chosen ones. They tried to remove him from the story. They took him and threw him into a pit. And then they sold him. And then they went home and told his father he was dead. And Joseph, who had done nothing wrong, who had been guilty only of carrying something that others found threatening, found himself in a foreign country, in someone else's house, in a role that bore no resemblance to the vision he had been given. And then, just when that situation began to stabilize, just when he had found his footing and earned a measure of trust, he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. Years passed. The promise seemed not just delayed, but destroyed. The vision he had been given as a young man must have felt, in the darkness of that prison, like a cruel joke rather than a genuine calling. I am not going to tell you how the story ends right now, because right now I am not asking you to look at the ending. I am asking you to look at the middle and to recognize yourself in it, to recognize that the experience of being thrown into the pit by the very people who were supposed to celebrate you is not evidence that the promise was wrong. Recognize that the false accusation, the unjust consequence, the years in a place that bears no resemblance to the vision, these are not signs that you were mistaken about who you are. They are signs that what you carry is real enough to threaten the people around you. They are signs that the enemy of your destiny is real enough to fight against it. And nothing is fought against that is not worth fighting against it. You have been in the pit. You have been in the prison. You have been in the foreign country of a season that bears no resemblance to the life you were shown. And every single day that you have survived that, every single day that you have held even a thread of the original knowing, every single day that you have kept showing up, even when showing up produced nothing visible, you have been doing something that history will look back on as extraordinary. The years that were taken from you are real. The cost is real. The grief is real, and it deserves to be held, not rushed past, not immediately reframed into a lesson, just held, just acknowledged, just honored for what it actually was. You paid a price that most people will never understand. You paid it faithfully. You paid it without the comfort of knowing when it would end. And that faithfulness, that specific costly faithfulness, is the very thing that has been building inside you what the next season of your life is going to require. The pit was not the end of Joseph's story, and it is not the end of yours. But before we walk into what comes next, I needed you to know that I see what the waiting cost you. Not just in general terms, but in the specific, personal, daily, relentless terms of a life that has been harder than it looked from the outside and more purposeful than it felt from the inside. You paid the price, all of it, and not one day of it was wasted, not one single day. There is a moment in every long journey where the traveler stops walking, not because they have arrived, but because something inside them needs to understand the terrain differently before they can continue. Not a surrender, not a defeat, a reorientation, a moment where the map that got them this far is replaced by a larger map, one that shows not just the road they have been on, but the entire landscape they have been moving through without knowing its name. This is that moment for you, because everything you have carried, the years of waiting, the cost of being different, the loneliness of being positioned in a place that no one around you seemed to understand, all of it has been happening inside a framework that is much larger and much older than your individual story. And when you begin to see that framework clearly, something shifts in the way you hold your own experience. Not because the difficulty disappears, but because the difficulty finally makes sense in a way that changes everything. I want to introduce you to two concepts that come from ancient language and ancient wisdom, not as academic exercises, but as living realities that describe precisely what you have been living through and precisely what you are standing at the threshold of right now. The first concept comes from a distinction that existed in ancient Greek. a language that was built with a precision that modern language rarely achieves when it comes to describing the nature of time. In ancient Greek, there were two entirely different words for time, and the difference between them is the difference between the life you have been living and the life that is about to begin. The first word was chronos. Chronos is clock time. It is the time that moves in a straight line, second after second, minute after minute, day after day, year after year. Chronos is the time you have been counting. It is the time that is felt in your hardest seasons, like an enemy, like a measurement of everything that has not yet happened, like a record of delay. When you lie awake at night and calculate how many years have passed since the promise felt fresh and close, you are thinking in chronos. When you compare where you are to where you thought you would be by now, you are measuring in chronos. Chronos is the time that can feel like a sentence when you are in a waiting season, because every unit of it seems to be adding to a deficit rather than building toward a destination. The second word was kairos, and kairos is something entirely different. Kairos does not mean slow time or spiritual time or poetic time. Kairos means the right time, the appointed moment, the specific intersection where preparation and opportunity and divine orchestration converge in a way that makes what was impossible suddenly not only possible, but inevitable. In ancient Greek thought, kairos was the moment that a skilled archer waited for, the precise instant when the wind, the target, the tension in the bowstring, and the position of the body all aligned, so that the shot that had been prepared for through hours of practice could be released with perfect precision. You did not create kairos by trying harder. You did not manufacture it through effort. You prepared, and you waited, and you recognized it when it arrived. Here is what I need you to understand about your own story through this lens. Every year that has passed in your waiting season has been chronos time accumulating, and it has felt like loss because chronos time without the understanding of kairos feels like delay. But what has actually been happening underneath the chronos, invisible to the calendar, invisible to the people who measured your progress by external markers, is that the conditions for your kairos have been assembling. The preparation has been deepening. The character has been forming. The capacity has been expanding to match the size of what is about to be placed in your hands. And kairos, unlike chronos, does not announce itself far in advance. It arrives. And when it arrives completely. Not slowly, not partially, not tentatively. The moment of kairos is not a gradual improvement. It is a threshold crossing. It is the moment when everything that was being assembled in the invisible finally becomes visible all at once. You have not been living in delay. You have been living in the preparation for your kairos. And kairos does not reward effort. It rewards readiness. And readiness is exactly what the years you have walked through have been building in you, one layer at a time, in ways that your chronos measuring mind could not see, because chronos cannot perceive what kairos is constructing. This is not a reward for what you have endured. This is the natural outcome of a preparation that was always moving toward a specific moment. And that moment is not somewhere in the future. That moment is now assembling itself around you, the way a door assembles itself in a wall. Not all at once, but when you look up and see it complete, you realize it has been there for a while already. The second concept comes from the ancient Hebrew word kava. This word is often translated into English as wait, and that translation has done enormous damage to the people who needed to understand what the original word actually meant. Because in English, waiting is passive. Waiting is sitting in a chair. Waiting is watching the clock move in chronos while you hold your breath and hope something changes. Waiting in the English imagination is the absence of action. It is what happens when you have run out of things to do. But kava does not mean any of that. Kava is an image. It is the image of braiding a rope. Specifically, it is the image of taking multiple strands of fiber, each one individually weak and breakable, and twisting them together with intention and tension until they form something that can bear enormous weight. The ancient craftsman who braided a rope was not passive. He was not sitting still. He was working with his hands and his whole body, applying pressure, maintaining tension, ensuring that each strand was properly integrated with the others, building something that would not break when the weight came. And this is what has been happening in you during every year of your waiting season. You have not been sitting still in the passive English sense of waiting. You have been braiding. Every difficulty you have been through has been a strand. Every relationship that tested your character and your capacity to love without receiving equal love in return has been a strand. Every disappointment that could have made you bitter but instead made you deeper has been a strand. Every night of insomnia where you prayed in the dark without certainty that anyone was listening has been a strand. Every day you showed up and did the right thing with no external validation, no applause, no recognition has been a strand. And all of those strands have been braiding together under tension, with intention, into something that has the capacity to hold extraordinary weight. You did not see this happening because you were inside it. It is very difficult to see the rope you're becoming when you are in the middle of being braided. The strands are pulled tight, and it is uncomfortable, and you cannot yet see the finished form. But the braiding is complete, or very nearly so, and what has been assembled in you during these years is not weakened, depleted version of the person who began this journey. It is a stronger, more integrated, more capable version. A version that can hold what is coming without breaking. A version that has been tested at precisely the points where the weight of the next season will be applied. You are not delayed. You are not behind. You are not a diminished version of what you were supposed to become. You are a braided rope. And the tension that made you feel like you were being pulled apart was the same tension that made you unbreakable. Now let me bring these two concepts together, because it is their intersection that describes your present moment most precisely. You have been living in kava, in the active, strenuous, invisible work of being assembled. And you are standing at the threshold of kairos, the appointed moment, when the preparation and the opportunity converge and what has been built in the invisible becomes operative in the visible. These two realities are not separate chapters in your story. They are the same chapters seen from two different angles. The braiding was always building toward the moment, and the moment was always waiting for the braiding to be complete. The hour of revelation is the ancient name for what you are standing in right now. It is the moment where the chosen one looks back across the full length of the road they have walked, and the truth of the journey becomes visible all at once. Not just the destination, but the design, the reason for the specific path, the reason for the specific difficulties, the reason for the specific stripping away of things that felt essential but were actually limiting, the reason for the specific people who came and went, and the specific lessons each one carried. In the hour of revelation, the pain receives a name, and the name of the pain is not punishment. The name of the pain is calling. The final, most costly, most transformative layer of preparation carries the name of the very thing it was preparing you for. The reason you were rejected by certain rooms is because you were being reserved for a room that those rooms could not contain. The reason certain relationships could not hold you is because what you carry requires a different kind of container. The reason certain opportunities closed before you could fully enter them is because entering them would have redirected your path away from the specific destination that your braiding has been building you toward. This is not a retroactive comfort. This is the architecture of your story becoming visible. The door that has been assembling itself around you, the one that has been appearing in your recurring dreams, is not a metaphor. It is the Kairos moment made physical. And it opens not to the person who waited passively for their circumstances to change, but to the person who braided faithfully through every season that tried to convince them that the strands were not adding up to anything. They were always adding up to this. Not every door comes with obvious markings, but this door, the one that belongs to your Kairos, brings with it something unmistakable. It brings a peace that is disproportionate to your circumstances, a knowing that arrives before the evidence, a sense of rightness that does not require anyone else's confirmation. You will recognize it because you were built for exactly this moment. And the moment, beloved, has arrived. Something is moving. You may not be able to see it yet with your physical eyes, and you may not be able to point to it in your external circumstances with any precision, but something in you already knows this is true, because something in you has been stirring in a way that feels different from the ordinary restlessness you have carried through the waiting season. This is not the restlessness of someone who is still lost. This is the restlessness of someone who is about to arrive. There is a difference between those two feelings, and your body knows the difference even when your mind is still trying to catch up with what is happening. I want to be very specific with you right now, because vague encouragement is something you have had enough of. People have been telling you to hold on and keep going and trust the process for years, and while those words are not wrong, they are incomplete. What you need right now is not another exhortation to be patient. What you need is a clear picture of what the movement actually looks like when it begins, what to watch for, what to expect, what to protect, and what to absolutely refuse to do during this particular window of time. Because this window is real, and what you do inside it matters more than almost anything you have done in the years leading up to it. Let me describe 3 specific areas where you are about to feel movement, and I want you to pay close attention to all 3 because they will not all arrive with the same level of drama or visibility. Some of what is coming will look quiet from the outside. Some of it will look like ordinary life rearranging itself in small ways. But underneath the ordinary surface, something extraordinary is being set in motion. The first area is your inner world. Your emotional and spiritual interior is about to undergo a shift that will feel, at first, slightly disorienting. Not painful in the way the waiting season has been painful, but disorienting in the way that any genuine transition feels disorienting. The way your eyes need a moment to adjust when you walk from a dark room into the light. You have been calibrated to difficulty for so long, calibrated to managing, embracing, and enduring, that the beginning of relief can feel almost unfamiliar. You may find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop when things start to ease. You may find yourself suspicious of peace when it begins to settle in, because peace has not been a consistent resident of your interior landscape for a long time, and an unfamiliar visitor can feel like a temporary guest rather than a permanent arrival. I want to tell you specifically what not to do in this area. Do not sabotage the peace by insisting on understanding it before you accept it. Do not interrogate every moment of ease with the question of whether it is going to last. The peace that is beginning to move into you is not fragile. It is not dependent on your circumstances remaining stable. It is the specific piece of someone whose orientation has shifted from surviving to arriving, and it will deepen the more you allow it, rather than the more you analyze it. What you need to do in this area is practice receiving. The practice I gave you in the third section of this message was not accidental. It was preparation for exactly this. The 7 minutes of stillness, the declaration spoken into uncertainty, the gratitude for what did not happen. These are the practices that create the interior conditions for the peace to take root rather than pass through. The emotion you are experiencing right now, that feeling I described at the opening of this section, the sense that something is moving, is not wishful thinking. It is accurate perception. You are sensing something real. And one of the things that is about to change in your inner world is your confidence in your own perception. For years, you have second-guessed yourself. For years, the gap between what you sensed and what you saw in your external circumstances made you doubt the reliability of your own knowing. That doubt is about dissolving, not all at once but progressively, as the things you sense begin to show up in your visible reality and confirm what you were already perceiving before the evidence arrived. The second area where movement is coming is your relationships. And I want to be honest with you about what this looks like, because it will not all feel good in the beginning. Some of what is coming in the area of relationships will look, initially, like loss. People who have been in your life for a long time are going to begin stepping back. Not dramatically in every case, not with arguments or confrontations necessarily, but with a quiet fading, a gradual reduction in contact and closeness. That will feel strange and sometimes sad, even when some part of you recognizes that the distance is actually appropriate. Because the relationships that are built for who you were in the waiting season are not always the relationships that are built for who you are becoming in the next season. And some of the people who were present in your life during the difficulty were companions for the desert, not companions for the destination. Do not chase the people who are fading. This is the critical instruction for this area, and I want to say it as clearly as I can. Do not chase the people who are fading. Do not perform smallness to keep people comfortable who are unsettled by your growth. Do not shrink back into the version of yourself that certain relationships were built around just to preserve the relationship. The relationships that are meant to come with you will come with you. They will not require you to become less in order to maintain the connection. And the relationships that cannot survive your expansion and span are not relationships that were ever going to take you where you are going. What is coming into the relational area of your life in this season is equally important to name. New people are being positioned to find you. Not random people, not people you need to pursue or perform for or impress, but people who will recognize something in you at first contact in the same way that you will recognize something in them. These are the relationships of the next season, built not on shared history or proximity, but on shared frequency. They are the relationships of alignment, the kind where the conversation goes deep within minutes because both people are operating from the same level of awareness. These people are already moving toward you. Your job is not to go looking for them. Your job is to become so fully and unapologetically yourself that when they arrive, they recognize you immediately. The third area where movement is coming is the area of purpose and resources. And I want to address these together because in your next season, they will be almost impossible to separate. The question that has plagued you for years, the question of what specifically you are supposed to be doing, what your contribution looks like in practical terms, how your gifts translate into actual impact in the world, that question is going to begin answering itself. not through a dramatic revelation, necessarily, not through a voice from heaven spelling out a 10-year plan, but through a series of small, clear, specific nudges that will arrive with a quality of precision distinguishes them from ordinary ideas or random inspiration. You are going to notice that certain opportunities begin to present themselves in areas that align with what you carry. Not all of them will be large. Some of them will look almost too small to matter. But I want to tell you specifically what not to do in this area, and it is this. Do not dismiss the small step because you were expecting a large one. The Kairos moment that we talked about in the previous section does not always announce itself with a fanfare. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet invitation that only the prepared person recognizes, and you are prepared. The years of braiding have built in you precisely the discernment to recognize a genuine open door from an imitation of one, the peace that accompanies the right step, as opposed to the pressure that accompanies the wrong one. In the area of resources, something else is shifting. The sense of scarcity, the feeling of constantly working harder than the return justifies, the experience of fighting for things that should have come more easily given your level of preparation and character and commitment. That specific experience is beginning to lift. Not because the world is suddenly becoming fair, though in your specific case, the justice that has been delayed is also beginning to move, but because you are moving into alignment between who you are, what you carry, and the environment that was actually designed to receive it. When a key finally finds the lock it was made for, it does not have to force anything. It simply turns. I also want to speak to the fear that is sitting alongside all of this movement, because there is fear, and it would be dishonest of me to describe the beginning of a breakthrough season without acknowledging the specific fear that arrives alongside it. It is the fear that you will believe this time and be disappointed again. It is the fear that the hope itself is the most dangerous thing, because hope that is raised and then disappointed cuts deeper than the disappointment of someone who had stopped hoping altogether. That fear is understandable. It is the scar tissue of a person who has been through real difficulty. But I want to say to you directly, that fear is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that something real is happening. Counterfeit movements do not produce real fear. Only genuine thresholds produce the specific trembling that comes from knowing that what is on the other side of this step is actually going to change something. Trust the trembling. It is not weakness. It is the sensation of standing at an actual door rather than a painted one. I want to invite you to do something right now. Type the word receive in the comments below. Not as a magic formula and not as a performance, but as a declaration from the part of you that is done waiting to be given permission to believe that this is real. Type receive and let it be the first act of the person you are becoming rather than the last act of the person you have been. Because what you have been sensing is accurate. What you have been feeling stir in you is real. What is moving in your life right now, in your interior world, in your relational world, in your world of purpose and resource and opportunity is not wishful thinking, and it is not manufactured hope. It is the door season. And the door has your name written on the inside of it, where only the person who was always meant to walk through it could ever see it. You can believe this, all of it, every word. Because you were built for exactly this moment, and this moment was built for exactly you. Everything I just described to you, the movement in your inner world, the shifting of your relationships, the beginning of alignment between your purpose and your resources, all of it is pointing to something that needs to be named directly. Because the season you are entering is not just a better version of the season you are leaving. It is a fundamentally different kind of life, lived from a fundamentally different place inside yourself. And the person who walks into that life needs a name. Not the name your past gave you, not the name your waiting season assigned to you, the name of who you actually are. Now, after everything the preparation has built in you. And the name I want to give you today is this. You are a waymaker. I want to explain what that means with the precision it deserves, because this is not simply an encouraging title given to make you feel better about a hard season. It is a specific, accurate description of the function you carry in the world and in the lives of the people whose paths will intersect with yours in the season ahead. A waymaker is someone who goes first, not because they are the most confident or the most prepared in the conventional sense, but because they were built to open a path that did not exist before they walked it. The waymaker does not follow a road that someone else laid down. The waymaker becomes the road. Every step they take in faithfulness, in integrity, in the willingness to keep moving through terrain that has no existing map, creates a path that others can follow after them. Think about what that means in the context of your own life. Every situation you have navigated without a guide, every problem you have solved without a template, every door you have pushed open without knowing what was on the other side. You were not just surviving, you were making a way for the people who will come after you in your family, for the people who will come after you in your community, for the people who are right now standing at the beginning of a road that you have already walked and who will need someone who knows the terrain. You are that someone. You have always been that someone. The waiting season did not delay your assignment. It was your assignment. The specific ground level, detail by detail work of learning a road thoroughly enough to guide others through it. The waymaker does not always receive recognition in the moment of the making. This is important to understand because it explains so much of what your waiting season has felt like from the inside. When you are making a way, you are by definition in territory that no one around you has navigated before, which means no one around you can fully affirm what you are doing because they have not done it, which means the validation you were looking for from the people closest to you was never available, not because they did not care about you, but because they were not equipped to recognize the significance of the ground you were covering. The waymaker is often the most misunderstood person in any room, not because they are wrong, but because they are early. You were not wrong, you were early, and early in the economy of the waymaker is not a mistake. It is the job description. Now I want to lead you through something. Not an exercise in the abstract sense, but a guided experience of a truth that you need to hold in your body and not just in your mind. Because some truths are too large for the mind alone, and this is one of them. I want you to close your eyes if you are in a place where that is safe and comfortable. Take one breath, slow and deliberate, the way I described earlier. And then I want you to picture yourself standing in a specific place. You are standing at a threshold, a doorway. The frame is solid and real beneath your hands if you reach out to touch it. The light on the other side of it is different from the light where you are standing now. Not blinding, not dramatic, just different, warmer, clearer. The kind of light that makes things easier to see. The kind of light that makes the details of a face or a landscape visible in a way that the dimmer light never quite allowed. Before you step through, I want you to turn around. Turn and look back at the road you have walked to get here. And I want you to really look. Do not sanitize it. Do not rush through it. Let yourself see the actual terrain of the journey. The long stretches where nothing seemed to be happening. The places where the road narrowed and you were not sure there was a path at all. The places where you fell and had to get up without anyone watching and without anyone to help you. The places where you carried weight that was not yours to carry and carried it anyway, because there was no one else available to carry it, and because something in you knew that it had to be carried by someone. Look at all of it, and as you look, I want you to notice something specific. The person who walked that road is extraordinarily capable, not in spite of the difficulty, but because of what the difficulty built. The steadiness you see in that person is not stubbornness. It is the kind of groundedness that cannot be manufactured in a comfortable life. It is the specific stability of someone who has been tested at the exact points where lesser people have broken, and who did not break. The depth you see in that person is not sadness, though sadness is part of it, and sadness has never been a weakness. It is the depth that only comes from having been in real darkness and having found something to hold on to in it. The compassion you see in that person is not weakness. It is the specific, earned compassion of someone who knows from the inside what it costs to keep going when everything around you says stop. Look at the roads that person made. Look at the paths that exist now because that person walked them first. Look at what was opened because they refused to turn back. And then look at where those roads lead. They lead here. They lead to this threshold. Every step was directional. Every difficulty was navigational. Every season of the waiting was moving, step by step, toward this exact point of arrival. That person walked every mile of that road, and that person is you. Now turn back toward the threshold. Look at the light on the other side, and notice that you are not standing in front of the door waiting for permission to enter. You are already standing at the threshold. Your feet are already at the boundary between what was and what is becoming. The door is not closed. It never was. You have been standing here, right at this exact point, for longer than you realized, waiting not for the door to open, but for yourself to look up and see that it already had. This is the moment of looking up. And as you stand here, at this exact threshold, between the road behind you and the light ahead of you, I want to speak something over you. Not as a performance, not as a formula, but as its genuine blessing from one who has been given the privilege of walking beside you in this particular stretch of the journey. May the weight you have been carrying find its proper resting place at this threshold, not in your hands as you walk forward, here, at the boundary, because what you are walking into does not require you to bring the heaviness with you. The preparation is complete. The braiding is done. The strands have been assembled into something that can bear enormous weight without breaking. And that something is you, all of you, the full, undiminished, divinely appointed waymaker that the waiting season has been assembling all along. May the relationships that are coming find you with your arms open rather than braced. May the purpose that is clarifying find you with your voice ready rather than silenced. May the resources that are aligning find you with your hands extended rather than hidden. And may the peace that is settling into your interior landscape be the kind of peace that does not depend on your circumstances being perfect, because your circumstances are not yet perfect and will not be for some time, but the kind of peace that comes from knowing at the deepest level of your being that you are in the right place at the right time doing exactly what you were built to do. May you have the courage to believe what you sense before you see the evidence for it. Because evidence follows faith in the economy of the chosen, not the other way around. And you have enough faith. You proved that every single day of the waiting season when you kept going without evidence. That same faith now has something visible to attach itself to, and it will grow in ways you cannot currently predict or contain. May the people who talked about you in rooms you were not in, the people who sensed what you carried and were unsettled by it, the people who tried to hold you back or hold you down or redefine you in terms small enough for them to feel comfortable. May they become the unexpected witnesses to what you walk into from this threshold, not for the sake of revenge and not even primarily for the sake of vindication, though vindication is already in motion, but for the sake of the testimony. Because your story, the full story, the road you made, and the threshold you are standing at, and the light on the other side, is going to be the very thing that reaches the next person who is in the middle of making a road without knowing that is what they are doing. Your story is not just yours. It never was. It was always meant to become the path someone else could follow. You are a waymaker. You are standing at the threshold. The light on the other side is real, and it has been waiting for exactly this version of you. And everything that brought you here, every strand of the braiding, every mile of the road you made, every night of the midnight hour, every morning you chose to keep going when stopping, would have been so much easier. It was all moving you toward this exact point on the map. You are already here. The road behind you is finished. The road ahead of you begins at your next step, and you were always going to take it. Because making the way is not something you do. It is something you are. You are standing at the threshold. You have looked back at the road. You have received the name that belongs to the person you have become. And now the question that has been living underneath everything else in message, the question that practical, grounded, real-world people always eventually arrive at, that question deserves a direct and honest answer. What do I actually do right now? Not in 6 months, not when the circumstances shift, not when the breakthrough becomes more visible or the confirmation becomes more obvious. Right now, today, in the life that is currently in front of you, with the relationships that currently exist, with the resources that are currently available, with the energy that remains after everything this season has asked of you. What is the practical, specific, doable thing that the Waymaker does in this exact moment? I want to give you 3 areas where action is available to you right now. And I want to be specific enough that when this message ends and you return to the ordinary texture of your day, you will know exactly what to do with the next hour and the next conversation and the next decision that comes toward you. But before the 3 areas, I want to say one thing that applies to all of them. The actions I am about to describe are not heroic. They are not dramatic. They will not look, from the outside, like the beginning of a breakthrough. They will look like small, quiet, almost ordinary choices made by a person who has decided to live from a different internal orientation. And that is exactly what they are, because the Waymaker does not begin their next season with a grand gesture. They begin it with a step, one deliberate, aligned, faith-forward step, and then another. And the road builds itself beneath their feet as they walk it. The first area is relationships, and the specific action available to you right now in this area is what I would call the release of the wrong grip. You have been holding on to certain relationships with a grip that is costing you more than the relationship is currently giving back. Not because you are foolish or codependent or lacking in discernment, but because letting go of a familiar connection, even one that has become heavy and misaligned, feels in the body like loss, even when it is actually freedom. The wrong grip is the one that keeps you in conversations that consistently leave you feeling smaller than when you entered them. It is the one that keeps you performing a version of yourself that was built for a season that is now ending. It is the one that keeps you available to people who are drawing from you without ever pouring malicious necessarily, not because they are necessarily, but because the connection was designed for a version of you that no longer exists in the same form. The release of the wrong grip does not require a confrontation. It does not require an announcement. It does not require you to explain yourself to anyone or justify the shift in your availability. It simply requires you to stop being the one who initiates, to stop filling silences that were never yours to fill, to stop apologizing for a growth that is entirely appropriate. The right relationships will not require you to shrink to maintain them, and the wrong ones will not be able to hold you much longer anyway, because you are changing at a rate that misaligned connections simply cannot sustain. What you do in the relational area right now is create space. Intentional, deliberate, unapologetic space. Space in your schedule where you are not performing availability for people who drain you. Space in your emotional bandwidth for the new connections that are already moving toward you. Space in your inner world where the voice of your own knowing can be heard without being drowned out by the noise of other people's needs and opinions and reactions. Creating space is not selfishness. In the Waymaker's economy, creating space is stewardship. It is the responsible management of a resource, which is you, that is about to be needed for something much larger than where it has been deployed. At the same time, look around you right now at the relationships that have survived the waiting season with their integrity intact. The one or two people who have stayed, who have not required you to be less, who have sat with you in the difficulty without offering easy answers or quick fixes, who have simply been present with genuine care. These relationships deserve intentional investment right now, not grand gestures, but the specific, personal, I am thinking of you kind of investment that tells another person that they are seen and valued, because the relationships you tend in the beginning of your next season are the ones that will become the deep roots of the life you are building. Water the right roots. The second area is purpose, and the specific action available to you right now in this area is what I want to call the one clear step. For years, you have been trying to see the whole staircase before you were willing to take the first step, and I understand why. Investing in a direction that does not ultimately lead somewhere real is a cost you have already paid once or more than once, and the hesitation to invest again without greater certainty is not a character flaw. It is the natural protective response of someone who has been disappointed by their own hope before. But here is what I need you to understand about how purpose clarifies in the season you are entering. It does not clarify all at once. It does not hand you a blueprint with every detail filled in before you begin. It clarifies in motion. The next step becomes visible when you take the current step, and not before. This is not a spiritual metaphor. It is the actual mechanics of how purpose unfolds for the Waymaker, because the Waymaker is making a road that does not yet exist, and roads that do not yet exist cannot be fully planned in advance. They have to be walked into visibility. So the question is not, what is my full purpose and how do I execute it? The question is, what is the one clear small step that is available to me right now in this actual day, in this actual life, that moves me in the direction of what I carry? And I want you to notice that when I say one clear small step, I mean it literally. Not a strategy, not a 5-year plan, not a complete reinvention of your current circumstances. One step. The thing that is quietly nudging you that you have been putting off because it felt too small to matter, or too exposed to risk, or too uncertain to justify the vulnerability of trying. That nudge is not random. That quiet, persistent, gentle pressure toward a specific action is the Waymaker's compass, and it is more reliable than any external validation you have been waiting for. Do the one thing today, before the noise of the world gets loud enough to cover the nudge again. Write the first page, make the call, send the message, sign up for the thing, have the conversation, apply for the position, begin the practice, do the one thing, and trust that the next step will become visible when your feet are on this one. Because they will. They always do for the person who is moving in alignment with their actual assignment. The third area is resources and opportunity, and the specific action available to you right now in this area is simpler and more counterintuitive than you might expect. The action is this: stop fighting for what is not moving toward you and start becoming fully visible to what already is. For years, the posture of your resource seeking has been one of effort and pursuit and pushing against resistance. And that posture made sense in the season you were in, because the waiting season required a particular kind of persistence that looked a lot like fighting. But you are in a different season now, and the posture that served you in the wilderness is not the posture that will serve you at the threshold. The waymaker who has arrived at their Kairos moment does not have to chase down what belongs to them. They have to be recognizable to it when it arrives. What does it mean to be recognizable to opportunity? It means operating at the frequency of your actual identity rather than the frequency of your waiting season survival mode. It means making decisions from the groundedness of who you are becoming rather than the fear of who you have been told you are. It means showing up in the spaces where your gifts are relevant without apologizing for the fullness of what you bring. It means being willing to be seen at the level you actually operate, rather than performing a humility that is actually just the habit of smallness that the waiting season installed in you. Practically, this looks like updating the way you present yourself to the world in whatever way is most relevant to your specific situation. It looks like having conversations you have been avoiding because they require you to claim something about yourself that still feels presumptuous. It looks like saying yes to the room you were not sure you belonged in, because belonging in a room and being recognized by a room are two different things, and you have always belonged. It looks like receiving what comes towards you without immediately looking for the catch, without immediately bracing for the disappointment, without immediately minimizing what is being offered, because you are not yet accustomed to receiving things that actually fit. The resources and opportunities of your next season are not going to require you to fight your way in. They are going to require you to show up fully and let the recognition happen. And recognition happens fastest when you stop hiding the thing in you that others are most threatened by, because the thing that threatened the wrong people is the exact thing that will attract the right ones. So let me bring these three areas together into the simplest possible summary of what you do right now. In your relationships, you release the wrong grip and water the right roots. In your purpose, you take the one clear small step that is already nudging you. In your resources and opportunities, you become fully visible rather than fighting for what is not yet moving toward you. These are not complicated instructions. They do not require perfect conditions or complete clarity or a level of confidence you have not yet arrived at. They require only the willingness to begin. And beginning, for the waymaker, is never really the beginning anyway. It is simply the moment when the road that has been building beneath your feet all along becomes visible enough for you to see that you are already walking it. You have been walking it for longer than you knew. And every step from here is forward. We are near the end of this time together, and before I say anything else, I want to do something that does not happen often enough in spaces like this one. I want to thank you, not in the polite, performative way that closes out a presentation, not in the way that a speaker thanks an audience for their time and attention. I want to thank you in the specific, personal, genuine way that one human being thanks another for showing up, when showing up was not easy. Because I know what it cost you to be here. I know that for some of you, getting to this point in this message required pushing past a version of yourself that has learned, through repeated disappointment, to be suspicious of hope. I know that for some of you, the words that landed in this message landed in places that have not been touched in a very long time, places that have been carefully protected, because the last time they were open, they were hurt in ways that took years to recover from. And I know that for some of you, staying through the difficult parts of what was named in this message, the grief of what was taken, the cost of the waiting, the loneliness of being different in a world that does not always know what to do with what you carry, required a kind of courage that most people will never see or recognize or applaud. I see it. And I want you to know that the part of you that showed up here today, the part that was still willing to listen, still willing to receive, still willing to hold open even a small space for the possibility that something real was being said, that part of you is not naive, it is not desperate, it is not gullible, it is the bravest part of you. It is the part that has survived everything the waiting season threw at it, and arrived at this threshold still alive, still oriented toward something better, still carrying the original knowing, even after everything that tried to extinguish it. That part of you deserves to be honored, and I honor it now, with the full weight of everything that has been spoken in this message. You are not alone in what you have been carrying. I want to say that again, because it is one of the things most easily forgotten in the isolation of a long waiting season. You are not alone. Right now, in this exact moment, all across the world, other chosen ones are walking into this exact same message. They are sitting in different time zones, in different languages, in different circumstances, carrying different specific variations of the same essential weight that you have been carrying. Some of them are in their cars. Some of them are in quiet rooms. Some of them are watching this in the only private moment they have managed to carve out of a day that has asked everything of them. And every single one of them arrived here by the same path you did, drawn by something they could not fully explain, unable to look away from words that were naming something they had been carrying without language for. You are in a room full of people who understand. You have always been in that room. The isolation of the waiting season can make it feel like you are the only one walking this particular road. But the road you are on has been walked by more people than you currently know, and some of the most significant relationships of your next season are going to be formed with the people who walked a road very similar to yours and who will recognize you immediately because of it. Your shared experience of the waiting is not just a wound you have in common. It is a language, and it is a language that will allow you to reach people that no one else can reach in the specific, personal, I have been exactly where you are way that changes a person not just in their thinking, but in their bones. Before I release you from this space and back into the world, I want to do one more thing together, and I want you to stay with me for this, because it is perhaps the most important practical thing in this entire message. I want you to lay down the burden, not metaphorically, not as a spiritual concept to be pondered later. Right now, in this moment, I want you to do something with your body that corresponds to what I am about to ask your spirit to do. Take both of your hands and hold them out in front of you, palms facing upward. And I want you to imagine, as specifically as you can, that everything you have been carrying through the waiting season is gathered in those two open hands. The The grief of the relationships that cost you, the weight of the years that felt like delay, the specific heaviness of being misunderstood by people whose understanding you needed, the fatigue of showing up faithfully in a season that seemed to produce no visible return, the ache of the dreams that went underground, the scar tissue of the hope that was raised and disappointed, the loneliness of the midnight hours, the specific pain of watching people who did not carry what you carry move ahead of you in ways that made no human sense. All of it in your hands. Feel the weight of it. Do not rush past the weight. Let yourself feel how much it actually is, because what you have been carrying deserves to be acknowledged for its actual size before it is released. And now slowly, I want you to turn your hands over, palms facing down, and let it go, all of it. Not because it was not real, not because it did not matter, not because the pain was not legitimate and the cost was not genuine, but because you are standing at a threshold, and the threshold does not require you to bring this weight with you into the next season. The weight served its purpose. It was part of the braiding. It made you what you are, and now it can rest here at the boundary between what was and what is coming, because you do not need to carry it anymore. You are allowed to walk forward without it. That permission is real. It is not conditional on you having fully processed everything that happened. It is not conditional on you having forgiven everyone who contributed to the weight. It is not conditional on you feeling ready, or feeling strong, or feeling certain. You are allowed to lay it down right now, in whatever incomplete and imperfect state your healing is currently in, and to step forward into the light on the other side of the threshold with empty hands that are ready to receive what is coming. Empty hands receive, full hands cannot. Now, if this message has reached you in a real place today, if something in these words found the specific address inside you that it was looking for, I want to ask you to do something. Not for me. That is important to understand. Not for me and not for this channel, but for the chosen one who is going to wake up tomorrow morning without anyone to name what they are feeling. For the person who is going to sit in their car before work and feel the weight of a waiting season that has gone on longer than they know how to sustain. For the person who is lying awake right now in a city you will never visit, carrying the same essential weight you have been carrying, desperately needing someone to say the words that this message has said to you today. If you are able to like this video, please do that now. Not as a gesture of approval for content well delivered, but as a signal to the platforms that carry this message that it deserves to be placed in front of the next person who needs it. Every like is a vote for the chosen one who has not yet found this space. If you are able to share this message, please do that. Send it to the person in your life who you know is in the middle of a waiting season without language for it. Send it to the one who has been carrying something heavy without anyone to name it for them. You do not need to add a message. Simply send it. The words will do what they need to do. If you are able to subscribe to this channel, please do that, because this message is not the last one. There are more chosen ones being reached every day, and every person who subscribes makes it more possible for the next message to find the next person who is ready to hear it. And if you are moved to support this work with a financial contribution, there is a donation link available, and it is held with genuine gratitude. Not because the message has a price. It does not, and it never will. But because the infrastructure that carries a message this far into the world requires resources, and every contribution, regardless of its size, is a direct investment in the next chosen one who needs to hear that they are not alone, that they are not delayed, that what they carry is real, and that the door season is upon them. Give what you are moved to give, nothing more and nothing less. And one more thing before I release you. If the genius wave found you somewhere in the middle of this message today, if the section about the frequency of the chosen one, about the gamma brainwave, about the 7-minute protocol that Dr. James Rivers spent more than 30 years developing, if that section landed in a place that felt like recognition rather than information, if something in you said yes to the idea of clearing the neurological path back to the fullness of what you carry, then it is waiting for you in the pinned comment below this video, not as a requirement, not as a condition of anything that was spoken over you today, but as a practical tool for a person who is stepping into a new season and who wants every available resource working in their favor. If it is a yes for you, you will know, and the link will be there when you are ready. The Waymaker does not arrive at the threshold empty-handed. They arrive equipped, and the Genius Wave is one piece of the equipment that belongs in the hands of someone who is serious about walking fully into the life they were built for. You are that person. You have always been that person. And everything, every word of this message, every section, every name, every concept, every blessing, every invitation, it was all spoken for you specifically, for the version of you that showed up here today with open ears and a willing heart, and the specific, irreplaceable, world-changing thing that you carry. Go now, not with the weight. Leave the weight here. Go with the name. Go with the knowing. Go with the peace that is already settling into the spaces the weight used to occupy. And go with this, the truest thing that has been said in this entire message. You were not almost chosen. You were not partially selected. You were not a backup plan or a secondary options or someone who made it in on a technicality. You were chosen, fully, specifically, deliberately. Before you had a name for the feeling, before you had language for the calling, before you had evidence for the promise. You were chosen then. You are chosen now. And nothing that happened in the years between that moment and this one has changed that by a single degree. The road you made brought you here. And here is exactly where you were always supposed to be. Now walk through the door. It has been open all along.